So here we are. So yes, I want to, mate. Thanks for taking the time, Phil. Would you prefer Phil or Philip?
Philip.
Philip, thanks for taking the time, Philip, for jumping on here with me and telling your story about how it all started for you with the custom bikes and the bike scene in general, and what your future is with your next build. And so, where did it all start for you, mate?
Probably like everybody, man. My dad had a bike. My grandpa had a bike. My uncles had a bike. When I was a little kid, I remember my dad had this. I think it was a '74 Honda 450, and it was bone stock he'd got when he was in Puerto Rico in the Navy. And I used to climb up on the seat when I was a little kid and in the shed, and it would always fall over on me. He'd get so mad, come in there, bust my ass, and then I'd hear about it from my mom, and it would not deter me. Like a week later, I'd be back in there making motor noises, sitting on the seat, and it'd fall over on me, and it rinse and repeat, right? And then when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, he got this old 60s Honda frame, and he had a buddy help him cut it in half, and then they welded the halves together, and he put the motor out of that bone stock Honda he had in it, the drivetrain. And I remember helping him sand the frame, and then eventually he got a Harley, he got an Ironhead, and he took me for a ride on it. Was like 13 or 14, and I was hooked, bro. Like just the sound and the power, and I was sold, man. There was no other living on the planet than with a Harley Davidson, man. I was sold. That was it. And it just, when I was a kid, like my mom always told me, because my parents split up, I was probably 12, 13, maybe 14 years old, probably 14 years old. And my mom was all, oh, you can't have a bike till you can buy one. You can't have a bike till you can buy one. So when I was like 14, maybe younger, I went out and bought a YZ80 two-stroke dirt bike for $50. And she was,
that's cool.
Dude, she was pissed. And I was like, you set the rules. I'm playing by them, you know? So that was my first bike, if you will. And that was honestly the last bike I ever sold too. I've never sold a bike since then. I guess because I always regretted selling that dirt bike. It was a cool little dirt bike. And then I had when I was 15, I didn't have a driver's license yet. So I scored this pedal start mini bike, like a Spree. Yeah. And then after that, I got a legit Spree with electric start, and I was 15, and I was, for 50 cents, I remember for 50 cents, I could fill that thing up with gas, and I would jam it all over the countryside. This was back in Michigan where I grew up, and I used to jam it to the lake and jam it to work. And then, you know, you get 16 and you're driving and chasing women and girls, and bikes kind of went to the wayside till I was 20. And then when I was 20, I bought a 1968 Ironhead electric start, 900 cc's, weighed a metric ton. It was heavier than hell. I still got it, actually. It's sitting here in the shop. And I don't know, it just escalated from there. Like after having a Sportster, you know, they always tell you, you know, girls ride Sportsters, men ride big twins. So I always wanted to get a big twin. Finally scored a Shovelhead, and I bought it from a guy in Long Island, had it shipped out here to Arizona where I was living, and just rebuilt the whole motor. I got a Craft Tech frame, just built a one-off bike that I've been riding for, well, I finished it in 2008. It's got a Baker 6-speed, hand shift, foot clutch. A lot of fun.
Is that the one that you got in the photo shoot?
No, so that's one I just finished. I call that one Butterscotch, and I always wanted an Evo, and I also always wanted to have an S&S engine. Heard a lot of good things about them. Obviously, I can't spend $8,000 on a brand new motor, so I scored one off of I think it was off Instagram out of San Diego. And yeah, so I killed two birds with one stone by getting an S&S motor that's an Evo, totally tore it down to the cases, had it polished. what do we do? We did 10 5-1 high compression pistons, punched it 10 over. It's brand new from the crank pin out, basically.
Wow. Wow, that's so yeah, I don't even know why I even asked that if that was the one, because it's clearly not a shovel, is it? That's in the pictures. I think I look through so many pictures of people's bikes and things that I
Sure.
get mixed up.
Sure.
But yeah, so like with that what we're talking power. Did you have it dynoed or?
No, so the one that I just finished, I literally just fired it up last week. I wanted to go get all the pictures taken of it before I fired it up in the event that the pipes blued and all that stuff. In my opinion, like a bike's only new once.
Yeah.
Once you start it up, things change. They look different. So I wanted to capture how it looked finished, right? Completed before running it. But no, I'm still doing the heat cycles on it, still breaking it in. Just getting everything dialed in. I got a lot of shows I'm going to be putting it in this year, in the next few months, which I'm lucky enough to do. We got a lot of great venues here in Arizona. The bike scene here in Arizona is off the chain.
It's because you guys have got incredible weather as well, isn't it?
Yeah, man, our riding season's year round. Like it's supposed to be
Awesome.
78 today, so yeah, it's beautiful right now.
It's
And
horrible here, mate. It's horrible here.
everywhere else, it's horrible, man. We
Uh,
got fantastic weather. Can't beat it. Like everything, I always tell people, like, because I grew up in Michigan, and people always ask me, like, "Hey, what's Phoenix, Arizona like?" And I always tell them it's the antithesis of Michigan. Like everything's opposite. So everybody's riding season everywhere else ends in the wintertime due to inclement weather and whatnot. Here, we stop riding in the summertime, not completely, but as much as we normally do, because it's just so extremely hot. Like it's not good for the bikes. It's miserable to sit in traffic with all the heat from the motorcycles, the cars, the asphalt. So we usually shut it down in the summertime somewhat. But that's the only real, like, that's our get in the garage, turn on the AC, work
yeah,
in
yeah.
the, it's the opposite of everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know what the weather is like in like the temperatures, but I grew up on the south coast of Spain, and so there they get like the winds off the Sahara Desert. So we've seen like, and I'm not very good with the difference on. So we had like degrees. So I've seen like 50 degrees in the shade. I mean, I remember like my dad riding his bike with his fingerless gloves and burning the bottoms of his fingers, which obviously are under. They're not even direct sunlight, but he's burning the bottom of his fingers because of the heat of the wind. You know,
Yeah.
so I can imagine that that's probably like what you have, but I'm guessing a lot hotter. I mean, like I say, I'm only guessing because I've never been to America. But
Yeah, out here in the desert, man, it's unique. You'll see some extreme temperatures. Like we'll average 110 for 60 days straight. It'll be over 110 degrees during the day, and at night it'll only cool down to 95, maybe 100.
yeah, yeah,
But that's only 3-4 months out of the year. The rest of the year, it's gorgeous, man. You can't beat it. That's
yeah.
why everybody's moving here. You know what I mean?
So I got like my best friend just commented. He lives in Spain as well, and he just found the need to tell me that it's pretty much like summer all year round over there for him. So that's not nice. He knows I don't. He knows I'll get back, and he's still fucking taking the piss. But yeah, yeah, man. So it's So like, I know we kind of deviated and got onto the weather here, but also I mean we're still with the weather, I suppose. Like with regards to bikes not getting rusty, man, that must be bikes and old hot rods, like old cars as well. Because I know a lot of you guys seem to be able to build and own both, which is awesome. So like you don't have any problem with bikes rotting and things then over there, I'm guessing.
No, man, it's beautiful. We don't have humidity. It's not moist here, so we don't have any rust. Um, Parts sitting around, it's not an issue. Like Michigan, where I come from, man, you leave it for a season and it's all rusty. And your spokes on your rims, you got to hit the steel wool on them and clean everything up every spring. Out here, it's like a time capsule, man. It doesn't deteriorate. It's not exposed to all that moisture. It's just heat, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So like with when you built like your Evo, like what are the prices like on the Evos? Because like obviously I listen a lot to Ollie's podcast from Ride Choppers or Die, and a lot of the boys like he's interviewed, like we were speaking off air, like with the Built World Championship and all the guys that are building panheads and knuckles, like the prices are astronomical on the engines. What type of price are you looking at on an Evo engine?
So Evos haven't, like a Harley 80-inch Evo, you can still pick up for $1,500 if you search.
Wow.
But whenever I buy a motor, me personally, I go into it with the mindset I'm going to completely rebuild the motor. I don't know where it's been, what's happened to it, who's done what to it. There's a lot of guys that have no problem taking that motor, throwing it in the frame, and running it like it is. And I wish I could be one of those guys, but I just can't, man. When I buy a motor, I buy it with the intent knowing I'm going to go through it and make sure it's 100%. Out here in the desert, man, we ride from one end of the state to the other end of the state to camp, to party, to hang out. And we got to take the freeways. There's only 3-4 ways in and out of the city. So
what type of mileage sorry to interrupt, mate, for those people that don't, I mean, like, I've never been to America at all, so I have no idea on, like, when you say like one side to the other side across state, what type of mileage we talking? So just to give people an idea, and for me as well.
Yeah, so like on what we would call like a close run or a close camp trip, round trip, you're probably 200, 300 miles. Okay. Round trip. Well, Arizona's got a unique landscape to it. Like Phoenix is centrally located in the state, but we have a lot of mountains when you go north and south. So a lot of times the roads have to deviate around the mountain or over the mountain, depending on how or where you're trying to get to. So that adds a lot of miles to your destination, right? And we never, when you're riding a motorcycle, you never take the shortest route, right? Like you want to take the longest, most beautiful route. You hit every pub on the way, every bar on the way, every hole in the wall, and it's just an all-day deal. So it's usually, like I said, we run from one end of the state. We've got different events going on in the spring and the fall all the time. The motorcycle scene is unsurpassed here in Phoenix. If you ask me, I've never lived in California. I don't know that scene very well, but I know we've got a very diverse motorcycle scene in Phoenix, man, and it's really cool. We've got a lot of resources. I mean, here in Phoenix at one time, we had Bourget Bike Works, we had Titan, we had Swift, we had all these motorcycle manufacturing companies right here in Phoenix, and we still have some great ones. I mean, we still have Dirty Bird Concepts, maybe you've heard of. Yeah. We've got Trask, who's building turbos for all these bikes. So we've got a lot of resources right here in the city, and it's great.
Yeah, that's cool. So a question is, like, do you take backup fuel? Because like where I grew up in Spain, my friends asking, like, we have like gas stations every 15 kilometers. Like over there, is it like if you're going through the desert, is it like kind of like that typical movie set image of you don't see a gas station, petrol station for 100 miles? Is it like that, or is it kind of like that's in the movies and not a real thing anymore?
So it's not really heard of anymore. The only time like I would ever carry fuel if I was going to Las Vegas, like I would ride my shovelhead to Vegas a lot. There's a my shovelhead with a peanut tank. It's about 2 gallons. I'll get about 60, 62 miles to a tank, depending on if there's hills or mountains or whatnot. But going to Vegas, there's a stretch between Wickiup and Kingman, and it's like 75 miles. So I'd almost always guarantee on running out of gas. Usually I could see the gas station, but I'd run out of gas and I'd have a little reserve bottle in my backpack or something. But for the most part, you can get 60 miles in any direct. You'll run into a gas station.
Yeah, it's like if I ever went out on my bike and I'm a fucker for running out of fuel. I'd go out on a bike and if I rang my missus within half an hour of being on the bike, the first thing she says, "Where are you?" She fucking knows. I'm that guy that's like, I think I can push that. I don't have to buy any fuel today, man. And it's like this fuel's not cheap, and I'm like, I can. But now I'm riding a big old inline four, old 80s ZX10 that just seems to drink fuel. Wait, I think it just throws it out the back, to be honest. Because there's a hole in the tank that random. It's weird as well because it's not always the same. So I don't know. Sometimes it's a bit more economical. Maybe it's to do with the position of the throttle, but yeah, man. So anyway, so like, what's it like going to Vegas, man? Like, I mean, what's that like riding to Vegas? That must be fucking cool.
Yeah, that's they used to have a really great motorcycle show up there. And they really don't do it anymore. They still have their bike week kind of thing, but riding to Vegas is like the old west. You know what I mean? You think about the cowboy in his saddlebags and he's cruising across the desert, and then he wanders into town and he pulls up to the bar. And Vegas is like, if you've even been to Vegas, you know the energy you feel when you get into town. But riding a motorcycle there, you come in through Boulder City, you cross the dam, right, the Hoover Dam, and you come over a hill, and boom, there it is, the city, and you're like, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Oh, wow.
And man, you just roll into town on that one-off chopper, dude, and you're just the baddest thing on the street, dude.
That's awesome, man. I can just imagine it as well. Like, must be incredible. Must be incredible.
On the bike, it would take me about 4 or 5 hours, so you're pretty beat up by the time you get to Vegas, riding a rigid across the desert and seeing them city lights and them casinos flashing, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And obviously, like, I mean, obviously you got sand probably hitting you in parts of your face, even though I'm guessing you wrap up your face a bit or you're riding full face. Well, you're probably not going to be riding full face on a bike like that, but like, what do you do? Do you wrap up and stop the old sand from smacking you in the face? Or
so we don't have a lot of sand here in the desert, believe it or not. It's we have sand dunes out west, Glamis and that, but for the most part it's just dirt with some small shrubs. And even out in the open desert, especially going to Vegas, it can get pretty windy. Sometimes I'll throw I don't know if it's like a sock, you know what I mean? It slides over your head.
Yeah.
And I'll have it on, so while I'm riding, I can, if I need to, I can pull it up to cover my mouth or my nose. But a lot of times we wear long sleeves and stuff to protect us from the sun, because the sun's just baking you. And you're riding your motorcycle, you're not thinking, oh, I've been riding for an hour, and then you go to the gas station, you're just beat red. It's too late. You're already sunburnt. So a lot of times we'll throw on long sleeves and whatnot. We try to wear thinner stuff that breathes. Because it is 100+ degrees. So anything you can do to cover your skin from sun exposure, right?
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. That's crazy. I would I'd love to do it. I'd love to be able to do a run like that. I didn't really get to do much. Well, to be honest, I don't really think I ever got to ride in Spain when I lived there. I used to do a bit of track time, but nothing serious. But yeah, being on the back of a bike in the summer, and it's horrible when you stop. It's fine when you're moving, even if it's warm air. But as soon as you stop, it's like, oh my God, it's like that you almost welcome that warm air. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah. So let's go. I know we deviated from building bikes. So, like, where do you get your inspiration from? I was looking at your bikes, and like, I don't know, it kind of have a bit of like obviously a bit of like Indian Larry style going on to me. I don't know, like with the skinny, like lane splitting, performance inspired. Not so much design over function type of feel for me.
Yeah, so my inspiration, like a lot of guys, man, I remember the David Mann pictures and Easy Rider back in the day. and just the freedom he portrayed in these pictures. You know, you connected to it like you were there. But there's throughout the years, there's been so many fantastic bike builders. Indian Larry, one of them, was come and gone, and with every bike that I see, I like, oh, I like that, I like this, but I like, you know, and you try to marry a lot of that stuff together. With this bike that I just finished, it was something I had in my head, and I couldn't let go of it. I had to get it out of my head and get it into real life. And when I get that idea in my head, I can't deviate from it. I can't change it. It is what it is. And I have to. It's just, I don't know. It's almost an obsession, if you will, to get to where that picture I had in my head. I don't know. A lot of inspirations from just everybody, man. Everybody. There's so many cool bike builders out there, and they're just fantastic bike builders. I mean, the stuff they do is just mind blowing. Yeah, I say a lot of times there's not really anything new under the sun when it comes to motorcycles. Like if it's probably been done before if you do something. But every once in a while, man, you get surprised by somebody. There was a guy,
and it's getting harder, isn't it? It's getting harder to find them people.
Yeah, and what I've noticed happening in the industry is guys are trying to get more and more wild with their bikes. And I don't have anything against that. I look at the bike and I'm like, how far are you really going to ride that bike? You know what I mean? Like, how functional is that motorcycle? And for me, it's got to be functional, but it's also got to look good at the same time. I mean, the riding we do out here in the desert, like I said, we're one end of the state to the other. So you got to be able to smash some miles and have a machine that can do it. Because having that buddy that's broke down all the time, you're not very popular. You know what I mean?
No. I can imagine.
We all like to hang out, but doing it on the side of the road over and over and over again is it's not good.
No, for sure, man, for sure. So yes, obviously, like when you say you took inspiration from like the old Easy Rider and all types of people. So did you find yourself leaning? Because like I say, your bike for me, it kind of feels like it's got a bit of performance look to it, especially like you say with it having a twin cam engine, an Evo engine, which generally they're not slow. I mean, none of the V twins are slow. There's always that perception, especially over here. Like you listen to sports bike riders and that, oh, the Harley dudes can't put it down, they can't go. I mean, like that's not the case. That's just not the case at all. It's, I mean, my old man's left a couple of inline fours standing at traffic lights, like, and then pull up to the next set of lights, and he's like trying to find an excuse. Oh, well, this, well, that. And he does it again, and it's like, oh, but and it's like just forget it. Don't assume because the guys want to plod along at 60 mile an hour that they can't put it down.
Right. It's true, man. I think it comes back to a lot of how that motor was put together, how it was geared up. Like, there's a lot of variables in there, right? So, yeah, Harley's gotten a bad rap over the years. It leaks, it does this, it does that. And all of it's true. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say it's not. It's all true. But yeah, I always love to look at the progression of Harley Davidson motorcycles. And I think they honestly, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I honestly think they quit progressing after the Evo motor. Everything after the Evo motor to me is just one form of the original. They've just modified it, changed it a little bit, but it's all basically the same, man. They quit. And it's all the same technology from 1903 when they started, man. And they've just improved it as they've gone. And I think they quit improving after the Evo motor. Evo motor.
Yeah, so I had Corey from Choppers Till I Die on, and he's an Evo fan. And I mean, I'll be openly honest, and I've said this before. I'm not a mechanic, and I'm certainly not a Harley Davidson expert. So I still get a little bit mixed up between looking at an Evo and a twin cam. And I remember like my dad was saying like it's easy to spot that that were on the timing side, the Evo simply has an extra lug, and then Corey, I can't remember, he went into a bit more depth, but it appears to me, as someone that's not educated in the Harley Davidson scene at all. Well, I mean, obviously, I can tell and that's why I apologize where I got mixed up between your bike, because I quite clearly know the difference between a knuckle pan shovel and, you know, a Sportster and an iron head, and a flathead. But where I was going with it was like, it appears to me that the twin cams don't have much love. Like, why? What's your opinion on that?
It's a disposable motor. The design was terrible. It's not built for the long run. You know what I mean? Like an Evo motor. I always say like the Evo motor is the small block Chevrolet of Harley Davidson. You could, if you take an Evo motor and you treat it right, you'll get 100,000 miles out of this motor, if it's put together right. But a twin cam, 30, 35, 40,000 miles into it, man, you got a grenade strapped between your legs. And it's just materials, it's design, there's a lot of weak links in that motor, if you will, especially in that cam chest.
Do you know what I mean? And literally, that's what's crazy, man. I was literally about to say, like, my dad's done, he's done 2, possibly 3 trips from the UK to Portugal. There's a bike rally in Portugal called Faro, which is Faro to me is probably like what you guys would talk about, like Daytona and Sturgis. It's phenomenal. I mean, they've had like Iron Maiden, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath headline, like, you know, Rammstein have headlined. So they're a very, very. I mean, I was fortunate enough to go. But anyway, so my dad, it's like I believe it's like probably like a 2,000-mile trip by the time, because he goes down into Spain, stops with my sister, and then he'll ride across. But he's done it all on his twin cam. And I mean, we spoke about this before, and he says they do have a bad rep, just like you said, especially in the heads. And I believe that there's some aftermarket companies they go to, is it cams of some sort? And they alter some of the sprockets or something. And he said that they're known for having a lot of like metal shavings. And he said that all he does is just do an extra oil change. And you know, his touch wood is he's still, and he said that he beats on it. He's not just plodding along, you know. And but yeah, so it's interesting to know like why they seem to. Like I say, this has come from like we spoke when you spoke earlier about Sportsters. I like a Sportster. It's what I like about the Sportster. And again, I'm only talking from a viewpoint because I've never ridden one. I like the compactability of it. I mean, my 125 that I'm going to start rebuilding. I know it's only a 125 and I only do 60 mile an hour, but I like, and that's kind of like what I liked about the look of your bike is I like the fact it has a look about it, like you can hang off it. Not like you're going to try and get your knee down, because obviously you're not going to ride like that, but you can actually chuck it into a corner. And that, to me, that's what a Sportster build, a custom build seems to have about it. Like the other week, I was fortunate enough to interview Pat from Leadstead Customs, and Pat is like renowned for his Sportster builds. And
he's the king, man. He's the king of sports.
Insane, man. I mean, and again, like, his bikes look fast sat there, you know, and that's what I like. Which yours as well. You're, like I say, your news, that to me, it just looks like it's massively, it looks fast sat there, you know, minimalistic and fast, and which is one of the things I love so much about Larry's builds as well, and like what I like about Pat's builds, and like what I think is, even though it's got to look cool and it's more design over function, it doesn't mean you got to wobble down the road at 50 mile an hour, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Sportsters are huge right now. Like, given the price of buying a big twin versus a Sportster, you can get a Sportster much cheaper, and these kids are making these long stretched out choppers with them. And some of them look fantastic. You have to look twice to realize it's a Sportster. It's not a big twin, you know? And they've really grown in popularity, and they've got the Evo motors in them, so they're super reliable, which is great for a young kid just starting out in the motorcycle scene. He doesn't have a lot of mechanical know-how or aptitude, you know what I mean? He can get on that thing and jam to wherever they want.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. It's so what are you talking price? Because I mean, in the UK, like now, if now what you buy a Sportster for, um you can buy what appears to me to be like an Evo or a twin cam. Like, I mean, you're going to get a rough one, a rough twin cam, or a rough Evo for that type of price. But Sports is now like, so in pounds, like some people are spending like £6,000 to £8,000 on a Sportster, which I don't know what that translates to US dollars, but it's a lot of money. Like, it's a, you know what I mean? It's like I
It's
said, you can buy. I mean, so I believe one of the guys I interviewed JJ from the tattoo studio in York, and he got offered I'm gonna say a shovel or a panhead, but it was stock, and he got offered it for about 6 grand. You know, and you can buy a Sportster for that now.
yeah. So the it depends on the so the Sportster came out in pretty much two sizes, right? You get the 883, which is the little one,
Yeah,
or the 1200, which is the big one, right? That's your same size as your 74-inch panhead or your shovel head, 1200 cc's. But depending on the condition of the bike, you can pay 5-6 grand for a Sportster. Um,
yeah,
and then sometimes you can get them for $1,500, depending on has been
mm,
sitting in the guy's backyard for a couple years or whatever. You know, it just
yeah.
whatever the market demands is what it is. I mean,
See, I think one of the best looking engines is the Ironhead. I, I
you're like,
really, really, I fucking love the look of the Ironhead, man. I like the fact that the cylinders kind of resemble the shovel, and then I like how the bottom end it's like all compact, but
yeah,
obviously, and like listening again, being lucky enough to listen a lot to like Ollie's podcast, from Ride Choppers or Die. I think a lot of you guys, it seems to be the bike that what you guys say cutting your teeth on. It
yeah.
seems to be where you learn, and you learn never to buy one again by the sound of it. I mean,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
there's two people in the world when it comes to Ironheads. You either love them or you hate them. There's no in between because they can be a real bitch to work on. They're real temperamental. If you're still in the motorcycle scene after owning an Ironhead, you've learned some hard lessons for sure.
wow. I mean, you say your dad had one. Have you had one, or did you just mess about with that one with your dad, or?
So my dad had a 72 Ironhead. It was 1,000 cc's and he had it hardtailed. It was in a calendar once. It was a real beautiful bike.
Oh, cool, man.
And I used to steal it all the time to go to work. And so finally I bought my own. I bought a 68, which is older. And he was mad that my bike was older than his. So he went out and bought a 1947 panhead. 47's a knucklehead, but it had a panhead top end on it. And but yeah, I still have my Ironhead. It's actually sitting right here in the shop.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And is yours hardtailed, or is it a stock bike, or?
No, yeah, mine's probably 75% original from the factory, which is pretty
Wow.
cool. And I always wanted to keep it that way. When I got it, I was 20, and I'm like, oh, the Ford controls are in. Like, so I put Ford controls. I wish I still had the mids that I took off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Fad's coming.
we've been asked what is the best bike you ever owned? That's what my friends asked.
The best bike I've ever owned is my 79 shovel. I built that motor. It's 80 cubic inch. I put an Andrews cam in it, Wiseco 9.5-to-1 compression pistons, Jim roller rockers. Love that bike. I still have that bike. The only problem is right now it's a kickstart. Like I was telling you earlier, I was in that accident last year. I can't start that bike. She's a nasty bitch to start when I got a good leg. There's no way I can start it right now with this
Wow.
bad leg. So she's
Wow.
just sitting there waiting patiently.
You don't get any of your mates to come around and kick it over just to keep it moving.
They've seen me try to start that bike. They're not having none
They
of it, man.
they don't want it.
They
They
don't
don't want
want
it.
it. No.
They don't want the bruised calves or the grey shins as it slide off the wrong way on the kicker.
Oh man, if that thing pops back, it'll throw you over the handlebars. She's pretty nasty.
Wow. So yeah, so like you mentioned, obviously we spoke off air about your accident. I mean, so for what like what I obviously I know what happened because we spoke about it, but if you want to kind of talk about that experience, which obviously it's an experience that most riders have of some sort of experience, or most people refuse to accept that this is something that can happen.
Yeah, they say there's two types of bikers out there: the ones that have been down and the ones that are going to go down. Right? At the hospital, they call us organ donors because
Yeah.
we're not going to live that long. Which, you know, my accident was it was a year ago this month, and we were turning into a pub to have some beers to talk about a run we are going to go on. And I made a crucial mistake, a lap in judgment on my part, and I shot out across traffic and was met by a Chevy Silverado in the third lane. Snapped the bottom of my leg off. My fib tib bone shot out the side of my leg just above my ankle, ripped my big toe off. It took a whole chunk out of my shin where it hit the air cleaner, shattered the air cleaner. I think my ankle broke because it hit the cam cover and it had no place else to go. So it just rolled my foot over it and snapped it off. I broke 7 ribs, had a collapsed lung, hit my head on the asphalt because I wasn't wearing a helmet. Got 7 staples in the back of my head. They wound up putting 4 plates in my ribs, and in my ankle they put 7 screws in a plate. I was in there ICU for 3 days, in the hospital for a couple weeks, and then I got to go home in a wheelchair. Yeah, it was a real tough experience, man. The being a biker, I didn't get a lot of love from the ambulance guys. They did me pretty dirty.
Really.
My wife is a flight nurse on a helicopter, so she goes to accident scenes and helps people and get them to the hospital. And she wasn't too happy when we got the report. So I'm laying in the road with all these broken bones. My legs snapped off. My buddies had to hold me down because I was trying to get up.
Fuck.
And I remember telling them I couldn't breathe. And I thought it was because they were holding me down, but turns out I had a collapsed lung. And the ambulance guys came and they threw me in the ambulance. They made me ride all the way to the hospital with no pain meds. Luckily, it was only 4 miles away. And as soon as I got to the hospital, they intubated me, put me under. And then shortly thereafter, I was in surgery to start putting bones back in where they're supposed to be, I guess. But yeah, so fast forward, I was doing good with the rehab and everything till this last Halloween. And then I had a sore happen on the outside of my leg, and it was like a blister. You know what I mean? When you get new shoes, you get a blister on your foot. That's kind of what it felt like. So I didn't think anything of it. And then I went to physical therapy, and the lady was looking at it, and she kind of pushed on a little bit, and it just blew up, man. This rupture of pus and whatever else came out of it. And they're like, you got to go to the emergency room. I'm like, yeah. So I go to the emergency room. They put me on antibiotics. I make an appointment to go see the surgeon again. By the time I go see the surgeon, it's looking better. He's like, yeah, it was probably a suture blister. Nothing to worry about. I got off the antibiotics on a Friday, and by Monday morning, I had 2 of those sores on my leg. And by the time I got back to the surgeon to see him again, you could see the screws and the plate in my leg.
Oh, wow.
So they were like, yeah, we gotta take that hardware out, right? You got some kind of bone infection in there.
Oh, fuck.
And my whole thing through this whole deal was like, I don't want an infection. I don't want to lose my leg. Because initially when I was in the accident, they couldn't get a pulse in my foot. They were going to amputate my foot. Luckily, they decided not to amputate my foot initially. But I was like, this whole process, I just didn't want an infection because I know what happens with that. So
yeah,
they're like, yeah, you got a bone infection. We got to go back in and they're going to take out 6 screws in the plate on my fibula, because that's where the infection was at. So on Halloween, I had to go back to the hospital, have that surgery done. Wound up spending 4 days there. I hate hospitals. I'm not a good patient. Um, so now I'm back to physical therapy, trying to get back on track
Wow.
again. But it's been
So
a
did they have to put a new plate in, or you
no,
no?
because the bone was already healed.
Oh, wow.
They said
Okay.
they said I didn't need it anymore. So they just took out the plate and the 6 screws, and I still have 1 screw in there. But that's it now. So
Yeah, that's insane. So and no reason as to, because I'm guessing, so if it's a year ago today or a year ago this month, so so you're talking like 10 months before all of a sudden your body decided it didn't want a plate and screws in it. That's
yeah,
crazy.
so I learned that with bone infections, they can lay dormant for years and then pop back up, and then you can have like brittle bones and
Wow.
all kinds of other side
Wow.
effects. Which I was like, man. But anyway, it is
Yeah,
what it. This is the game we play, right? When we ride motorcycles, like the whole
absolutely, mate.
the
Absolutely.
the whole time I was in physical therapy, they're like, "So are you done riding? Are you done riding?" And I'm like, I wish I could
Oh,
stand here and tell you I'm done with motorcycles, but it's just a part of who I am. It's what I do. It. I'd rather be dead than not be able to ride motorcycles. You know what I mean? And
and
that's an
yeah.
odd. It's an odd thing to say, but it's reality. Like
No, mate. Not at
I,
all. Not at all.
I just don't know what am I going to do? Collect stamps? Like no.
You won't be on my podcast talking about stamps, mate. That's for sure.
Rightfully so.
But
Rightfully so.
but do you know, it's like, obviously I was speaking to Peter from Peterbilt Moto, and he spoke, and we got quite into depth about, obviously, um, it's a conversation that none of us want to accept and listen to. You know, that when we're losing friends and loved ones, and Peter obviously spoke about how he lost one of his best friends, and he kind of somewhat took on the kind of responsibility in the respect that he got his friend into bikes. I lost a friend. He was 15 years old. As a matter of fact, my friend that's commenting a lot in the comments, he drove me to the cemetery about 2 years after he passed away, and it was in Spain. You used to be allowed to ride a 50cc at the age of 14, and obviously, as you can imagine, 50cc two-stroke teenager, they weren't by law. They had to do 50 kilometers an hour. Some of these boys were topping out. I mean, kilometers. They're topping out at like 130, 140 kilometers an hour. 74cc big bore kits, race tuned carbs. I mean, these bikes were not messing about. I mean, miles an hour, I'm going to say that 80. Some of these boys are topping out at 80 mile an hour from legally only allowed to do 30. And, they weren't fucking about. And so like I said, kind of, my friend, he was 15. And, like, obviously it kind of shakes you up a little bit. And at the time I was building my first bike with my dad, I built a 1983 Suzuki that I built, and it still didn't stop me. It's it kind of, like you say, it wakes you up a bit. But and then like you say, you get people that ask. I mean, and my response to that is probably comes across a little bit arrogant, but I say to people, like I say, the very fact that you have to ask why do you ride is the reason why you will never understand. It maybe sounds a little bit arrogant, and a bit obnoxious or whatever you want to say, but I just think that that's the truth. I think that if you feel that you have to ask, you don't know. Unless you get out and have a go, and typically someone that asks typically isn't
I've
really going
never
to
done
want to
it.
have a go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Eh,
unless you've done it, been there, like you don't get it. And I understand that. I understand your perspective. Like it's dangerous and all that. I get it, but like you said, you've clearly never experienced that freedom, and
Yeah,
it almost for some people. I feel sorry for them because I'm like, I know if you had a motorcycle in your life, you'd be a lot happier person, but it's not for you. I get it. My
yeah,
wife's like, are you nervous to get back on a bike? And I said, I'm scared to death to get back on a bike. But that's the exact reason why I got to get back on that bike, because
exactly.
I'm not one for living in fear. And with this whole accident, I felt worse for my buddies who had to watch me get hit, for my wife having to deal with all the doctors and surgeries and taking care of me. That's the stuff I feel bad for. I didn't feel bad that I was busted up, that I was like that's like I said, that's the game we play when we get on a motorcycle. We all know the odds and the chances we're taking with our lives. So I don't feel bad that I got busted up. I feel bad for the people who had to suffer around me
Yeah.
because of it. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think like I'd say the bike I got at the moment, ZX10. I mean, 80. Anyone that's ridden 80s Japanese bikes, they're unpredictable. You know, I mean, this thing's fucking. It's like an angry two-stroke with an extreme amount of torque. You know, obviously it's not massive power, but it's just got torque for days, and it's got an unpredictability to it. Um, and I enjoy riding it. I just over here, like we got a lot of speed cameras, and they're massively, the government are massively encouraging people to become fucking grassy little snakes with their dash cams. You know,
Yep.
it's disgusting. You know, at the end of the day, if you're riding like an idiot, fair enough, and overtaking on blind corners and things, but people, I mean, the English obviously they like bikes and that, but a lot of people, I think, because obviously the way the world's going and people getting more angry and it's almost like they resent you being able to overtake them in gridlock traffic and things. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but you just can't ride like, and a bike like an inline four Jap bike, especially an 80s one on carburetors that doesn't want to run smooth at low speed. It's either on or off. There's no plodding. It's, you know, it's and it's just and that kind of, like you say, it's fun when you're on the country roads and dicing it up a bit, but you can't do that for too long, you know.
Sure.
It's yeah, that's it. So it's I mean, have you had any Jap bikes?
No, my dad had that 74 Honda 450. That's probably the closest thing I've tinkered with on Jap bikes. It's never been appealing to me, I guess.
Mm,
I don't have anything against them. I see some guys build
no,
some sweet choppers out of them, and they're usually pretty reliable. But just nothing I ever dipped my toe into, you know.
yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I'd like to say I'd love to be able to own a Harley at some point and build. But for me, I just like the engine. Is like, I mean, I love the soft tail frame. I think that's a cool as hell frame. I don't like what they've done with the is it the M8, the Milwaukee ones, the new soft tail. I don't like the way they've kind of cut back the down tube on the swing arm.
And the
I'm not a
mono shop.
fan. It's yeah, you know, like you know what I mean, where they've kind of on the, like, so my friend has one. He has a Softail Slim, the new one. Well, they stopped. I believe they've just stopped making them, but and he's made it look nice. You know, it's got the wide front wheel and a fat tire on the front, and kind of gone for like the old cowl horns, handlebars, like that beach vibe look, and that, which is cool as hell. I mean, it's a cool bike, but it's just, I don't understand why they did that with the back with the swing arm. You know, they just bought instead of it coming down at 45 degrees to make it look like a hardtail frame, they've brought it up almost flat, and it's just no, I don't get it.
Yeah, Harley Davidson designers are notorious for stealing styling cues from the aftermarket world, right? So they see what clubs are doing to their bikes. They see what all these different people are doing. They're like, oh, that looks good. Let's bring it to market, right? And sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss. I'm not a big fan of that monoshock under the seat either. Like, I had a dyno that I was hit on, and it had the shocks on the outside, and that's the way I think it should be. But to each his own. I mean, that's why they have so many different
Yeah,
models, right?
yeah. Because I mean, like the FXRs now, like they're hitting silly money. And at one point, people could almost not give them away, and
Yeah,
now
yeah.
and that, obviously that's the younger generation of taking them, and they're putting big power in them and turning them into stunt machines, which obviously it makes sense. You got all that torque, and I mean, it's incredible what these guys are doing on YouTube. You know, I mean, I know I'm probably going to get his name wrong. Chrissy Speed. He's massive on YouTube.
Cruisy.
Cruisy.
Yeah. Cruisy
You know,
Originals. Yeah.
yeah. I watch his stuff all the time, man. And I love his shit. He doesn't give a fuck what he says. He just rips the fuck out of Harley Davidson all the time, and it's like he
That's
doesn't give a
crazy.
fuck.
That's crazy,
do,
man. He's the same way in real life. So
do you know?
yeah, he's right here in town.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I'd love to get him on my podcast because I would just love to hear him rip the fuck out of it because he just doesn't give a fuck, does
Oh
he?
no,
He
he's got no
care.
yeah. Cruzy's got no filter, man.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, if you get to see him one point, just say there's an annoying an annoying dude in England that wants you on your podcast just to rip the fuck out of Harley. Because I just love the fact that he just like one of his newest videos. He's working on something on the injection rail, and he's like, they do this bit out of billet, and the fuckers put this plastic piece on, and it's just like, fucking, you spending 30 odd grand on a bike. Why the fuck? It's like. Awesome.
Yeah, he was on there. He was on there not too long ago bitching about something to their engineers, and they actually sent Cruzy a cup of coffee from Harley Davidson. Like, just have a cup of coffee and chill out, right? Yeah,
well,
Cruzy's.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
He's
they do the motorcycle
cool shit as well.
Yeah, he Cruzy doesn't give a shit about nothing, bro. Cruzy does what Cruzy wants. Like, that's what he does, man. They do that. They do this mini bike run over there that once a year, and goddamn, they must have 300 mini bikes, and they're just wheeling down the streets and terrorizing neighborhoods, and it's gotten so big, like, it's hilarious.
And that's what I mean. Like, I've spoke to a few people. Like, when you truly aren't about impressing other people, and you just, you're living the shit, and you're not faking. You're not making it look great on Instagram. And obviously we all try to. I mean, I edit videos just because I'm appalling in front of a camera. Otherwise, basically, people are going to spend 5 minutes listening to me repeat the same words. I'm like, but because I'm so terrible, and that's the only reason why I edit. I just crop out the bullshit because I'm mumbling in the middle, which I know I do on my podcast, and I keep saying to myself, "Gotta stop this shit. Gotta stop this." But then I suppose I ask people if they want to come on, and I'm guessing everyone will listen to a 10 minutes or so of each podcast or a few to kind of get the idea. And if people still want to come on, then I must be doing something okay,
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's what I mean, like with the likes of Cruzy, like, because he genuinely doesn't give a shit, people appreciate that more. Like when you really don't care about whatever. Obviously, you care about your craft, and people respect you for your craft. And it's that obviously you need that, but when you're about just doing you and not worrying about anybody else, people respect that more, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of Instagram, social media networks, people out there that are just chasing that dollar, man. They just want to get rich by any means necessary. You know what I mean? And I don't know about where you're from, but here in Phoenix, it's a small knit community in the motorcycle community. And if you burn somebody, like, bad news spreads faster than good news, right? So you don't want your name out there associated with being shady or doing bad deals, because it does get around, and pretty soon you're going to be blackballed in the city. And the only way you're getting motorcycle parts is through Amazon.
Yeah, and you don't want to be that guy, that's for sure. No. That's for sure. It's and that's like with me, like when I set up. I mean, I set up, and I've said this on loads of podcasts already, but I set up 666 Customs with the idea of I want to build my bikes on YouTube, and I'm not building them to sell. And like I say, I'm building a Chinese 125, which over in the UK, Chinese bikes aren't respected at all. But I can tell you that I've owned mine 11 years, and it gets beat on everywhere because it's a 125. You can ride that thing flat out everywhere. I'm running straight through pipe, 27 mil race carb on it. It has like this attempt of a EGR system, engine gas recirculation. I ripped all that out. I welded up the plug in the cylinder where they run the exhaust gases out of it, and I beat the hell out of that thing. And I touch wood, it keeps going. So my experience on on the Chinese stuff is, I guess it's kind of like some of the old Harleys that you just gotta put up with the little gremlins and keep going with it. But that's what I wanted to do, is because I'm not a fabricator, I've somewhat taught myself how to glue bits of metal together safely, because I've had my worlds have never broken. You know, and I think that, again, trying to keep it real and just not trying to make it fucking pretending that I'm something I'm not. And I mean, my end goal with 666 Customs is to obviously make an income on YouTube. Because I'm trying to teach myself and show my kids that, look, hard work and determination, that you can achieve something. And then, like I said, the podcast just kind of came about. And at one point, I thought, oh, maybe it'd be a cool idea to monetize the podcast. But then I realized that if I did that, it then becomes something that it doesn't stand for. You know, it becomes a biased platform towards how can I be sponsored by you, for example, and then go and interview one of your competitors. It's just disrespectful and it's wrong. So that's why the podcast stands for what it is, and it is what it is. You know, it's called the Let's Talk Motorbike podcast, but I interview tattooists, anyone in the any art, because being that I come from a bit of a tattooing background, creativity is art, choppers are art, fabricating something out of something that wasn't what it was is art. It's, you know.
100%. Yeah. 100%, man. I think with bikes, especially, and like you said, tattoos, like you're just, a lot of times you can take an idea and then to bring it to fruition, to be in life, like that's art at the highest form. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's I mean, is the tattoo scene big in Phoenix? I can imagine it's big everywhere, especially in America.
Yeah, well, Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the nation, so it's a pretty big city. So, yeah, if it's going down, it's usually happening in Phoenix somewheres, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So kind of deviated off the bikes a bit. What's the plan for your future with? Have you ridden since your accident?
Just down the street for a minute. I haven't smashed any miles yet. Having surgery in October set me back probably 2 months from where I wanted to be. But I'm ready to ride this one. The one I just finished. It's just I've been shaking it down, fine tuning everything, and actually was going to pull it off the lift today, being it's going to be 78 degrees, and maybe go for a putt. I had to do battle with the state to get it titled and then get insurance, registration, all that stuff, make it legal. So that's all done.
Is that hard work, that stuff? When you say battle, like what's difficult in that respect?
So with this bike, I'm not a manufacturer of motorcycles, right? So I don't have the ability to slap a VIN on it, or a number that the state would recognize as legal. So I have to take the motorcycle along with all my receipts to the DMV. We call it the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. And they actually do a level 2, level 3 inspection. The police go through everything, make sure it's not stolen, blah, blah, blah. And then they give you a sticker with their VIN on it for the state of Arizona. We call it our blue tag. And then you put that on the frame, and then you have to go get it registered, get the title, so on and so forth. With mine, they messed up the paperwork at the DMV, so it took me 2-3 trips. So it's always, whenever you're dealing with the government, it's always a slow, painful process, and expensive too, right?
Yeah. So like with so obviously, like, your newest build doesn't have a front brake, does it? You're running a 5-spoke wheel. So when it comes, do you get away without a front brake with age related, or is it just that it's okay because that's what you want to do?
So yeah, in our state, we don't have a lot of gotta have blinkers, gotta have a horn, gotta have, they're pretty lenient on that stuff. They asked me when I was getting it titled, what's the odometer read? I said, it doesn't have an odometer. So, but it's 0 miles.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to give me a hard time about that, but they didn't. They just put on there, none or whatever. So they're pretty lenient about that stuff in our state. Now there's other states where you got to have the blinkers, you got to have the horn, and so on and so on. And they're more restrictive on it, but not in Arizona.
Yeah, so the UK is pretty much like you said with the harder states. I think, like, to be honest, if you're lucky to obviously for what we call a MOT. So I don't know if you guys got what vehicle inspection. Like we have an MOT every year, right? So on a new vehicle, I believe I could be getting this wrong, but I believe it's you don't have to get an MOT for the first 3 years, and then like there's grey areas. So like I don't on my 125 because it's suicide shift foot clutch. I fabricated it all in my shed and that.
Nice.
By law, I needed indicators. So, but it was kind of like a grey area that if there was no evidence of a wiring loom, it can kind of get ignored. Because for some reason, enduro bikes don't need indicators. Even a brand new enduro bike, they don't. I'm not saying that I'm not saying they don't come with them. I'm saying that I was always told that. And again, I could be getting this wrong. This is only of my information that I was told.
Sure.
So like, but you needed a horn, headlight, high and low beam, and you needed a front mudguard, front fender. And like I'm trying to get, so like I've been up to see my guy ready to when I get my 125 rebuilt, and he's like, I said, look, what can and what can't I get away with? And he's like, well, you need a front brake. And I'm like, fuck, because I want to do like what you've done, where you shaved all the forks down. Because I'm quite lucky, even though it's what people say is a shitty Chinese bike. I'm really lucky that the standard wheels are really cool. So they're 5 spokes straight away. They're
Nice.
they're cast 5 spokes, and at the bottom of the spoke they got a little like flick where they come round back onto the rim. It looks really cool, and it's only the fact that like getting more inspiration from you guys building clean, minimalistic front ends. I thought I've already got that stuff. I just need to just tidy it up.
Yeah.
And he's just like, anyway, my MIT guy is saying, look, you can't come to my workshop with no front brake. And I said, well, what if I put it in a carrier bag and hang it on the handlebar?
Right.
And obviously now I started doing a little bit of clothing. I'm like, what if I put it on in a carrier bag with a hoodie inside that bag and bought it up? And he's just stood there shaking his head at me. I'm like, come on, man, I don't want to run a fucking front brake, and he's telling me I can get away with no front mudguard. And I think it just depends on who you got, really. But I don't want to run a front brake. So, what's it like riding with no front brake? Because I've never ridden a bike with no front brake.
So this one's not bad because it's got a hand clutch. When you're running a foot clutch with no front brake, you better be a skilled rider because
that's going to be me.
You get on a hill and then you're in traffic and you're trying to let the clutch out, and it can be interesting.
Talk more about that, because I want to know your experience, because I mean I'm gonna find a way around now. Even if I have to go and buy a fucking another front fork, with the caliper side on it, and I'll just run it up to the MOT place with the front brake. And when he asked me why have you got one silver stanchion and one black one, I'll be like, why.
Yeah. So what a lot of guys done, like I don't know if you've seen like Jeff Cochran, Speed King. What he does is he runs the dual caliper on the rear disc
with the button.
Well, he'll actually put a master cylinder up there like for the front brake, but it's piped to the back wheel, so he can actually hold the rear brake with the handlebars.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then they do the line lock deals. But I don't know if I trust that little solenoid they got in line or not. I don't know, but yeah. So riding jockey shift with no front brake can be hairy. I mean, everybody, when they saw the pictures of this bike, they're like, "Where's the front brakes? How are you going to stop?" Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, it's got brakes. They're just not on the front, right? Like,
yeah.
And usually it's people that are commenting that have never been on a bike. So they don't know how little you use the front brake anyways, because anybody knows that if you start jamming that front brake trying to stop real quick, you're going ass over tea kettle, and it doesn't matter anyways. You're still going down, right? So
yeah, it's crazy you say that though. Like, so for example, on my ZX10, I don't use the back brake, which is weird. But then on my 125, because my front brake is pretty shit, I only ran back brake. But then when I used to race 140 pit bikes, like the mini pit bike, supermoto, like tarmac racing, because I'm a larger lad sat on a larger guy sat on a small frame, I found it coming up to a right hand corner, for example. So you come up, bang it into the right gear. You want lean off the bike and reposition. So basically moving your foot forward to dab the back brake, to then shave off all the speed, and the bike's trying to wobble about, and you're trying to stabilize it to get the toes back onto the peg, to lean off the bike, to get the knee down. I just found it way too much hard work. Like, so I didn't run a back brake, and then I did. I ran it. I didn't use it, but then I noticed a lot of the fast riders were running fun brakes. So again, they were, and it was good to know, because I'm not fast. I was like always 3/4 of the pack type of speed. I'd never last, which is for me was enough. But obviously it was good to know that them guys were clearly experiencing the same problems. But so yeah, so like obviously we got, where we're on the brakes is like, I don't know, personally I like a front brake, but obviously for me design is way over. Like, I'm more design over function. I would rather be soaked wet through with next to no mud guards, effing and blinding that to myself, going, what a fucking idiot. But once I get there, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's where it's at.
That's it, man. That's it. So yeah, so mate, again, I think we've kind of covered everything, and you look like you're getting a bit stiff sat there, probably with your legs, like with your ribs as well. Do you still suffer with your ribs?
No, believe it or not, man, I had zero issues with the ribs. Like I said, they plated 4 of them, and I've cracked ribs before, and it's like days of misery, right? Like every sneeze, every movement, like for the weird. I don't know if it's because I was so doped up for the rest of my injuries, like it didn't bother me, and then, but no, I had zero repercussions with the rims or the ribs. Like they healed up pretty quick, I guess.
Yeah. How's with your ankle as well? Like, have you got full movement in your ankle?
Yeah, so I got pretty full like movement with the ankle. The biggest thing I'm trying to get through is like it's really stiff. Like I don't have the full range, and then they amputated my big toe, so I don't have that balance on that foot like I used to.
Is that? Yeah, that's an interest. Sorry to interrupt you there. Like, because you always hear that. Like, you hear someone say, "Oh, if you lose your big toe, like you lose balance." Like, obviously, like you just said, that's obviously a real thing. Then.
Yeah, it is. Like,
wow.
I do this exercise at physical therapy where I stand on one foot for 30 seconds, and then I have to stand on the injured foot for. I can't stand on my injured foot for maybe 5 seconds, and then because as soon as you start leaning in, that big toe is usually what you use to correct, right? To go, and it's not there, so I just keep going.
Wow. That's done. Yeah, no, like you said, it makes full sense when you say that. It's only when you start thinking about. See, I've had again, I can't even talk about my injuries compared to yours, but I've had 3 operations on my right knee. So I got some screws and a little plate in my right knee, and even now, like, I notice a difference. Do you know what I mean? Like when the cold comes in, and
you ain't lying, man. You ain't. I always say I'm like the Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz. Like you want to get out the oil can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's obviously like. Have you been anywhere where it's actually been proper cold since having metal in your body?
No, I haven't. So the last year I've been pretty much cooped up in the house for the last year. I was in a wheelchair till March, and then I had a walking boot. And then I had to learn to walk without the walking boot. So I haven't really gone anywhere this past year. I've been pretty much cooped up in the house, and by the time I got physically to where I could get around again, I'm bored out of my damn mind from sitting around. I had this whole bike sent out to the plater, the chromer, the powder coater, and the motor everything was ready to go back together. So as soon as I was able to get moving and hold a wrench again, I started putting that bike back together because I knew it was just sitting out here. And
that's cool, man.
Yeah, it was good. It was good physical therapy for me too, because it kept me moving instead of sitting around thinking about how shitty something felt or hurt. You know what I mean? When you're working, you don't think about that stuff. You're just doing what you normally do. So it was good therapy for me.
Well, that's it. And it's like, especially like if you're someone like myself, that one, I mean, like I'm one of them guys. I go to, I finish work 6 o'clock this morning. I work days and night shifts, and I'm that guy that's like, fucking hell, I don't want to work. But then when I've had like part-time jobs, I've never not worked, but when I've had like when I was working in a tattoo studio and then I had a second job to kind of contribute the money imbalance. When I had time during the week, I fucking hate it. If I get stuck in my head, it's a bad place for me to be. You
Yeah,
know, I
man.
get my head just and then like you said, with being, I mean, I did like 2 months where I was on crutches after I've had three, like I say, 3 operations on my right knee. But um, for me, it was incredible how I didn't put any weight on. Like now, I think I look at something and I'm just trying to keep. For me, it's hard to keep weight off now. Like I lost 10 kilos, sat literally doing nothing for 2 months. You know, I don't know how I did it. I literally lost. I was 70 kilos, and then I lost another fucking now, that's it.
Crazy.
So do you?
Yeah,
It's
I,
crazy.
I, yeah, I probably gained 10 pounds, 12 pounds sitting around. But I'm the same. I hate sitting around, man. I'm always got to be doing something. And this past year, I've had to be super patient. I'm not a patient person, but I didn't have a choice. So
That's it.
there's
And you
nothing I could
probably
do.
learn. Yeah, you probably learn like I mean, my uncle, he had similar types of accident to you, in respect of like injury. My uncle broke his back in 2 places, 7 ribs. I mean, did you sustain any organ damage?
No, luckily I didn't have any
Yeah,
organ damage. No, other than
yeah,
the collapsed lung.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
so
it.
my uncle had he twisted with the impact. So basically, his body went like round on itself. So he twisted a lot of his vital organs were all in the wrong place. He's ended up on a colostomy bag.
Wow.
Scientifically, he's in the Guinness. I believe I could be wrong, but I'm sure he's in the Guinness Book of World Records because he's got no nervous system working in his right leg. It's completely like numb, but he still walks. He still walks and he still rides. So because he can't fly, he travels Europe on a bike or in a car, like and he kind of, because he's still a big guy, like he used to weight train like from a young age, and because he's from the chest up, he's still even in his, I believe he's coming up to like 60 years old. He's still in really good shape for an old for an older guy, and the way he walks, where he has to like pivot on his hips, he almost looks like he's walking around looking for problems. Because and he's got that look. He's a prop. He had a fruitful younger adult life.
Sure.
Um, and he, like I say, he still rides.
Awesome.
He's yeah, it's incredible. But 2 breaks in his back, severed nerves, all that stuff. But I think it's incredible, and that's what I mean. You got to get up. You got, like you say, you got to get back out. Otherwise, what's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. And the
You know?
biggest thing too, man, is the mental game. Like you start going downhill mentally, and it's more mental than it is physical. It really is. Like it's healing is healing. Your body's gonna heal, but
Yeah.
trying to stay mentally positive is the hard part.
Well, that's it. I mean, but like you say, you've managed to fucking rebuild a cool bike, and the pictures are cool as well. It's like your dude that took. I was just talking to a guy about half an hour before I got on here with you. I got to get some photos done of my ZX10. Hopefully, try and get it featured in a mag. And I say this guy is a young teenager, and I like the work he's doing, and he seems really excited to kind of get some pictures of my bike done, and I want to get like some graffiti background type of thing, and
Yeah.
so hopefully I can get them done, and I got to get it. I want to get it featured. I owe my friend some exposure for his paintwork, and even though he's never asked me, I just kind of feel like I owe him it because the work's insane. In my opinion, it's insane, and then I need to get it sold to kind of just carry on progressing with this whole 666 customs thing. Is what started off with just a t-shirt with a shirt that someone asked. I didn't take much persuading, but what started off with a t-shirt, someone asking, "Can I get one?" ended up kind of starting to somewhat develop into a small clothing thing. And
Nice.
kind of with my clothing idea is like I want to keep everything affordable because I'm the guy that can't afford £50, £80, $100 hoodie. So like I do all this stuff myself.
Yeah.
I got my friend that done all the paintwork also does all my transfer work. I go and
Nice.
source the hoodie. I then go and do all the weaving, and I do all the application. Even with the hats, I source the laser engraved logos, and I kind of like kept that kind of. At first, like the idea was I had someone, because I got a family member that runs an embroidery company, and that it was going to be hopefully that he was going to do it, and then it very quickly realized that my orders aren't big enough, and I kind of kept it more to myself, that I didn't want people thinking it was shit stuff, because obviously a photo doesn't do anything justice, but everyone that's purchased something, because has kind of come back with really cool words, and like some people almost seem shocked on the quality. It's like, well,
Nice.
just because it's an affordable price. I mean, my profit margins are smaller, but
Sure.
that's not what I stand for. It's not
Sure.
the idea that I've actually got a jacket going out to Phoenix, Arizona. You know, which is awesome. It's
Oh,
like,
really?
fucking hell. Yeah. I got I don't know if you've seen the armored lumberjack jacket that I got. There's a guy called Jeff that has a hardtail iron head,
Okay.
real raked front end, and he's in again. I know he's probably, there's me talking like he's around the corner from you, but he's probably the other side of the state or whatever. But yeah, so I got a jacket going out there, and so
Nice.
it's incredible. It's incredible, like that you're sat on the other side of the world. It's like what, midday for you now, and
Yeah.
like I'm able to sit here and chop shit up about bikes and talk about, and I, as you can tell, I don't shut the fuck up, so it's easy for me to sit and talk.
It's all good. Yeah, it's
But
technology, man. It's cool. It's sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good, but that's anything, you know.
that's it, man. But no, mate, I'm gonna let you get moving again, because it's probably not very comfortable for you just sat there not moving about. But thanks again, mate, for taking the time to sit on here, and thanks for talking about like your fucking experiences after an injury, and what it's like
Sure.
for you rebuilding your life as well. I know it's personal shit, and it's cool that you've been able to comfortable talking about that. I appreciate that.
No, no worries, man. I'm happy to help. I'm thankful for being on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I'll end the live stream, and we'll